In the vernacular of religion, gods. Last time in episode 1 of this series, I took you on a trip down memory lane to show you how my personal connections to science, religion, and the stories they both tell led me to make the video, Has Science Become the Religion of the 21st Century? In this episode, we're going to take a closer look at the relationship between science and religion as we explore the mythology of science. Let me say right off the bat, before anybody gets pissy with me for calling their beliefs or their life's work a mythology, that I am only using the term here with its original context. A mythology is a collection of tales that explain something. Every belief system has one, including science. And I am not the first person to draw a connection between science and religion. Although the two have struggled for centuries to keep each other at arm's length, they remain inextricably linked even today in the 21st century. As I'll show you during the course of this video, this is true not only in the minds of the scientists themselves, but in the ideas that they put forth to explain the universe. Most remembered for his occult studies, including his work with Edward Kelly and his work as an astrologer, Dr. John Dee was also an astronomer, a mathematician, and a teacher. Michel de Nostradam, better known as Nostradamus, is best known for his book of prophecies and his work as an astrologer, but he was also a medical doctor and an apothecary. He was a mathematician, a physicist, an astronomer, and a key figure in the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment. Sir Isaac Newton was also an alchemist and a theologian. As late as the 19th century, when Charles Darwin published his theory of evolution, a creationist view of the universe was still prevalent in the world's academic institutions and scientific community. Many of Darwin's supporters taught about evolution as divinely guided, and even Darwin himself never completely broke away from a religious mindset. He identified himself as an agnostic rather than as an atheist. Perhaps the most shocking of all is the case of 20th century rocket scientist and chemist Jack Parsons. He was one of the founders of NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. He was also an occultist and a follower of Aleister Crowley's Thelema religious movement. Unfortunately for Mr. Parsons, the views of Darwin's day had by this time given way to a more secular view, and his religious beliefs and practices cost him his job at NASA. This is because the works of physicists like Albert Einstein, Edwin Hubble, and Georges Lemaitre, among others, created a new, wholly secular model of the macroscopic universe. A mythology independent of supernatural forces and complete with its own creation story, the Big Bang. Ironically, this same work brought with it the discovery of something that even today science struggles with, because it returns it ever closer to the realm of science, of religion and the supernatural, and that is quantum physics, the physics of the microscopic universe that operates by a completely different set of laws. I'm about to show you in the next segment of this video the theory science comes up with to not only explain the quantum universe, but also unite it in a single working model with the physics of the macroscopic universe, sound increasingly similar to the religious beliefs and practices of cultures going back thousands of years, even allowing for the existence of a soul, a spirit world, and a creator. Let's take a look. Now let's do a side-by-side comparison of modern scientific thought about the universe with ancient religious beliefs and practices. To be honest, this is my favorite part of the video because it shows connections between science and religion in such a way that it not only suggests ancient people understood more about the universe and how it works than we traditionally give them credit for, but also demonstrates quite beautifully, in fact, how modern science has come full circle with hypotheses and theories now being taken seriously that sounds suspiciously like the ideas they've been decrying as superstition for centuries. I, for one, find that fascinating, and it makes me want to delve further into ancient texts to see what else our ancestors may have figured out that we haven't discovered yet. Now, for clarity's sake, most of the ancient beliefs and practices we'll be comparing here are those of the medieval alchemists and magicians, though some of them are far older than that. I've personally found that they were at their most developed state during that point in history, and the comparisons to modern science are easiest to make. I'll start with a general comparison of the two mythologies and then move on to more specific connections. That'll make it even easier to see how everything relates. The religions of the world tend to differ on specific details, but they all tell the same general story, and it goes something like this. In the beginning, the cosmos emerged into being from a vast and formless void. One or more gods brought order to the primordial chaos by shaping the cosmos into the form we know today and creating everything in it using the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. The cosmos shaped by the gods was a place of many physical and metaphysical realms, and was filled with spirits and powerful magic. At some point, human beings were created in the God's own image, were given a mind and a soul that survives eternally beyond death, and at some point, the cosmos will come to an end. In contrast to the religions of the world, science traditionally involves no deities, but it tells a very similar story that goes something like this. 13.8 billion years ago, the universe expanded into being from a hot, dense point in an event called the Big Bang. As the universe continued to expand and cool via a mysterious force called dark energy, the 4 fundamental forces came into being and began shaping the universe: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong nuclear force, and the weak nuclear force. At some point, a mysterious form of matter, and possibly the first form of matter, called dark matter, emerged and formed the scaffolding that gives our multidimensional universe its shape and holds it together. Soon after, the first quantum particles of normal matter came into being. These came in 2 flavors called matter and antimatter. There was slightly more of the former than the latter, and what was left after the 2 forms of matter annihilated each other, gathered together to form hydrogen, the first element. That hydrogen clumped together to form the first stars and galaxies, which formed more complex elements as they lived their lives and died in violent explosions. Those more complex elements came together to form new stars, and around many of those, planets. Around those stars in a galaxy we call the Milky Way, life happened to form on the 3rd planet out from it, thanks to a process called evolution and a series of cataclysmic extinction events. That life would eventually give rise to the human species. At some point, the universe will come to an end. As you can see, there are a few more steps involved in science's version of events, but overall it tells the exact same tale of a universe that came into being under mysterious circumstances and eventually gave rise to life, including humanity. Now, that's cool enough. But it's when we put specific ancient beliefs about the universe side by side with modern scientific hypotheses and theories that things start getting really interesting. Okay, to start with, the practice of alchemy is rooted in a Hermetic principle first found in an ancient text called the Emerald Tablet of Hermes Trismegistus. Now, that's a mouthful. Try saying that 5 times fast. Which states, that which is above or below corresponds to that which is above, and that which is above corresponds to that which is below, to accomplish the miracles of the one thing. In other words, the upper levels of reality correspond to the lower levels of reality, and together they are one unified thing. When we compare this side by side with modern science, it seems to line up with not one but 2 concepts. Einstein's notion that space and time are really a single entity called space-time, and the relationship between standard and quantum physics, which modern science is still struggling to find the elusive theory of everything to explain. Alchemy, as well as the practice of reading tarot cards, rely heavily on the Kabbalah, which is a ancient Jewish mysticism, and as displayed on the Tree of Life, it holds that the universe has either 10 or 11 dimensions, depending on whether or not you count Da'at as one of the dimensions, called Sephiroth. This lines up perfectly with 2 competing theories for the aforementioned theory of everything, string theory and M theory, with the primary difference between the 2 being that the number of dimensions they predict. String theory says that the universe has 10 dimensions, while M theory says that it has 11. Ancient and modern practitioners of magic, or witchcraft as it is known to some, hold that whenever they cast a spell, they create a link between the tools of the spell and the target of the spell to affect said target at any distance. This also happens to match exactly the definition of quantum entanglement, a state in which 2 objects become linked in such a way that what happens to one affects what happens to the other, regardless of distance. Next, the aforementioned 5 classical elements, earth, air, fire, water, and ether, seem to line up very closely in form and function to the 4 fundamental forces of physics: gravity, electromagnetism, weak nuclear force, and strong nuclear force, plus dark matter. Earth, the element believed by alchemists and magicians to give matter mass, weight, and solidness, corresponds to gravity. Air, the element of light, communication, and swift movement, corresponds to electromagnetism. Fire, which glows, radiates, and transforms one substance into another, corresponds to the weak nuclear force, which is responsible for the radioactive decay of one element into another. Water, with its ability to keep even loosely bound droplets together in a pool, corresponds to the strong nuclear force, which keeps atoms and subatomic particles from flying apart. And, like ether, dark matter is made from different stuff as everything else and doesn't interact with it fully, yet it is the glue that binds the cosmos together. Okay, so far so good. We have 2 ideas about the creation, form, and function of the universe. One from religion and one from science, lining up more closely than either side would probably care or dare to admit, but it's the final 3 items in this list which show that science has truly merged onto the off-ramp into Religionville. 2 of them because they are legitimate but untestable scientific hypotheses that presuppose the existences of souls and a creator, and the third because it comes from the words of a respected NASA scientist on national television and suggests the notion of something akin to a spirit world. Okay, so finishing off this list, we first have the quantum mind hypothesis. This is the name given to a collection of untestable hypotheses that postulate that consciousness is a property of the universe itself, imparted to living things through quantum mechanics. In case this idea's connection to religion isn't already obvious, the entire concept sounds like a scientific version of the oversoul from 19th century transcendentalism. And because the law of conservation of energy won't allow energy to be destroyed, and the law of conservation of quantum information won't let information about something be destroyed, it could easily be inferred that the imparted consciousness does not end after physical death. In other words, a soul. Next, we have an offhand comment made by a respected NASA scientist that has a very interesting, though probably accidental and most certainly unintended, implication. In an episode of How the Universe Works, which airs on the Science Channel, Dr. Michelle Thaler, an astronomer who works at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, says while discussing dark matter that if it interacts with itself, then that opens up the possibility of dark matter stars, planets, and even people. Now, on its face, that might not sound like an overtly religious idea, but since dark matter is, as we discussed, a different kind of matter that doesn't fully interact with the normal matter in the universe, that would mean that the nature of these stars, planets, and people, if they exist, are of such a nature that we would be unable to directly detect or interact with them in any way, even if they were 2 inches in front of our faces. I don't know about you, but to me, that notion sounds an awful lot like the notion of spirits and a spirit world. Okay, now, finally, closing out this list is the simulation hypothesis. This idea, which is actually being taken seriously and investigated in certain scientific circles, states that our universe is a simulation being run on some sort of computer. This, my friends, is the most blatant indicator that science has come full circle into becoming a religion in and of itself. Why? Because, to be true, it doesn't just imply, but in fact requires the one and only thing that has always been the exclusive domain of religion throughout the whole of human history. One or more beings living outside the simulation to create, monitor, and maintain it. In the vernacular of religion, gods. Okay, now I know that I'm probably about to get flooded with a lot of comments saying that it's all a coincidence, or that I'm taking one or two things and twisting them out of context to fit my claims, or give me the old broken clock argument that yes, the ancients had some good ideas that match up, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. And I know that I'm going to get some comments about the fact that I used Dr. Thaler's words to support my claims that science has become a religion. And I know that I'm going to get these things because I've gotten them all before, when I've brought this kind of thing up on Facebook, or Twitter, or Reddit, or in any number of other places. So let's go ahead and address that now. Okay, first of all, the historical connections that I made at the beginning of this video, they're a matter of public record. You can go look up anytime you want to about Darwin and Einstein and Parsons and Newton and Nostradamus and all of them. It's all there. Now, as for the connections, well, let's just say that, yeah, some of those things could be coincidental by themselves. But the fact of the matter is, I just spent 13 minutes and 9 seconds covering not only the similarities between the overall stories that science and religion both tell about the universe, but covering specific things that line up between ancient religious thought mystical thought, stuff like that, and scientific thought, modern theory, including one of those things that slams directly into the realm of religion. Now, and I did all of this, I should say, without once repeating myself or resorting to lengthy explanations replete with charts and diagrams and equations to fill in the time to explain how everything works. I just talked straight through about one similarity after another. Bam, 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 bam. 13 minutes and 9 seconds. Now, that stuff could be coincidental, but if it is, that is a whole lot of coincidence. And I think that it's pretty safe to say that, I'm not just taking one or two things here. That's a lot of stuff. That is not building a house of cards on flimsy evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, that is bringing enough bricks, wood, and concrete to the lot to build a whole big, beautiful house and supplying the blueprints for it right on top of that. I think that it supports my claims beautifully. Now, as for using Dr. Thaler's comments, now, as I said earlier, I know that she did not intend to imply the things that I said her comments imply. However, in the context of everything we just talked about, it's a valid interpretation. And don't get me wrong, I like Dr. Thaler. I like how she gets excited about the things that she talks about and makes you excited about them. But the fact of the matter is, like I said, it is a valid interpretation, like I said, in light of everything we talked about. And it is a valid interpretation when you consider especially the similarities between dark matter and ether that we covered. And the fact of the matter is, she may not have intended it, but she's a respected scientist, and she said it on national TV, and it's there. That makes it just as open to interpretation and criticism as if it had come from a peer-reviewed article or she had said it in front of a convention of scientists. And like I said, I believe it's a valid interpretation. So, why don't y'all tell me what you think and let me know in the comments. Alright guys, that about does it for this video, but before I let you go, I want to ask you to please hit that subscriber button down there in the corner. My birthday is coming up on July 26th, which is just a little less than a month away, and it would really mean a lot to me and be a great present if I could get my subscriber count up to at least 50 people. So please hit that subscribe button. Okay, I will see you next time when we close out this series with part 3, discussing dogma and cognitive dissonance in the scientific community. Until next time, guys. Peace.